Good evening, Sitaram, and welcome to all our listeners, both here in Trinidad and Tobago, of the Caribbean and worldwide, wherever this program is uh, seen and heard. And let me let our listeners know that this is an interactive program. The numbers, you can reach us at any time during the program. You can call. Our numbers are 663-2335 and 663-1027. And let me say that this is our regular Thursday morning program that airs from 9 to 10, and it is also repeated again at 10 p.m. in the night. At the end of the program, this program will be posted on YouTube and Facebook for anyone who has not been able to follow it in its entirety. And you may go back and review, and especially if you wish to, you can send a link to someone who you think may be able to benefit from this program. Now, this morning, unfortunately, we were supposed to have a guest from the General Service Board, but for some unforeseen reason, he has not been able to make it. However, from my limited knowledge of the structure of Alcoholics Anonymous, having worked alongside AA and in the treatment facilities and so on, I'm going to share with our listening public, our brothers and sisters out there, there's a lot of misconceptions about Alcoholics Anonymous and how it operates and things like that. And as I say this, if there are any members of Alcoholics Anonymous, especially people who are on the board or at the intergroup levels, who wish to call and supplement what I'm saying by giving their own comments of what's happening out there. And it's an opportunity for AA to do some public information work to our listening public. So let me say too that as soon as you call, please turn down your television and listen to us on the phone, because it will cause some disturbance. And as soon as you call, I will take your call immediately. So this morning, a lot of people have heard about Alcoholics Anonymous, and some people refer to it as a 12-step program, as you would have seen at the lead up to my program here at the station. The 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous was read out, and preceding that was a short video on the various aspects of alcoholism and drug addiction. And I want to thank Francis and the people at the station for selecting these videos, because that video, to my mind, from my professional experience, I think really covers all aspects in an encapsulated way. The diagnosis, the treatment, the challenges, the drugs that are abused, the reasons for its use, and all of that. I think it was a very, very good formatted video, so that those of you who wish and have the facility to rewind, you can go back and look at it again. So this morning, I'm going to be speaking about Alcoholics Anonymous. And as I said, anyone from the fellowship, you're quite welcome to call the station and supplement what I'm saying or give your own comments. Now, Alcoholics Anonymous is credited to have been brought to Trinidad by Professor Michael Burbran. Professor Burbran, as a young intern, he went to study medicine in Ireland, and that is way back in the 1950s. And there he got introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous has been around since 1939. Prior to that, many psychologists, famous psychologists like Carl Jung and all of these people were trying to analyze, what were the predisposing factors that led people to start using alcohol and to have them become addicted to alcohol and so on, with very limited success. It was not on, and there were many groups that were started before Alcoholics Anonymous in the United States. There was one called the Oxford Group that started in order to help alcoholics to sober up, and they had limited success. But it was not until Alcoholics Anonymous came on the scene, which it was introduced by its founders. Bill Wilson was one of the founders, and Dr. Bob. These two people were the original members of the fellowship. And what they did was they spoke about their own experience with alcohol to other alcoholics. And they spoke about the nature of alcoholism. You know, how they started to drink, what are some of the things that happened with them because of their drinking. And since they were able to stop, what were some of the good things that were happening with them? And with time, the 12 steps, as were read out at the beginning of the program, were eventually, as they said, hammered out on the anvils of experience. It was put together. And from a professional point of view, when I look at those 12 steps, they really answer to all scientific review in terms of, and someday I will go into the steps again. I have done it in the past, where it helps the person to identify what the real problem is. In the very first few steps, it also points the person to support systems within themselves and in their communities where they can get help. And it also takes them through a process of, in psychology, it is called treatment planning, where you look at the strengths and weaknesses of the client sitting in front of you. The program of recovery actually helps the person to do that for themselves, with step 4 and 5 of the program, where they take a searching and fearless moral inventory of themselves, and for the first time, actually identify the underlying problems, not the presenting problems that they thought were causing their problem, alcoholism in the past. So that the rest of the program from step 6 is really moving towards being curative, in that it helps the person to identify their weaknesses and to work on them. It also helps them to fix their relationships by suggesting that they make amends, to the people they would have harmed and so on. And then there are step 10 to 11, 10, 11, and 12 that are really steps that are intended to maintain the person's recovery, where they take a daily inventory, moment-to-moment inventory, and they can actually catch their thoughts that would lead them, predispose them to taking that drink, and deal with it at the thought level. But I will do a much more fuller discussion on that. I want to come back to, that is the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. But Alcoholics Anonymous since 1939 have now been adopted in over 189 countries of the world. In fact, it's worldwide. Even if you went to Alaska or the South Pole, you'd find people, you still have access to Alcoholics Anonymous, especially now. There are online meetings. There have been online meetings even since the early days. People during the war in 1940, 45s, 40 wars and so on, soldiers would be writing to each other. They would be keeping meetings online by writing letters to each other. But even in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is considered the Bible, since the 4th edition, they wrote in there that, someday the founders had the vision that people will be relating to each other modem to modem. They had the foresight to see where communication will be developed to the point where you can have meetings online. And indeed, that has been fulfilled today, where in Trinidad and worldwide, there are meetings as we speak of Alcoholics Anonymous, who, once you have a smartphone and you have internet or a laptop or a tablet or anything that can communicate in that way, you can access a meeting. And at the end of this program, if anyone is interested in finding more about meetings, how you can access a meeting, you can call me at the number 671-3040, and I'd be only too happy to give you the information. But coming back to Alcoholics Anonymous, in Trinidad in particular, we are very fortunate because of the efforts of the old timers. You know, the earliest groups were in Port of Spain at St. Mary's College and the Greyfriars Church. And then there was a group in El Dorado. Then there was another one in Williamsville in South Trinidad. And it actually mushroomed after that. So to the extent where there is almost 120 active AA groups in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, I must say that during the COVID and because of the restrictions, a lot of these groups were decimated, you know, um, because of the inability to attend. And, you know, after people stop attending for a little while, some people lose interest. You know, they come to the point where they feel, well, look, you know, and the families sometimes will tell them, look, you haven't been attending meetings for 2, 3 months, 6 months. You don't need to go anymore. And they get themselves into other routines. And so, yes, there has been a reduction in the amount of people attending physical meetings now. But I want to say that they all, in fact, just this weekend, it came to my knowledge that there's at least 24 AA groups in the central area that is administered to by the Central Intergroup of Alcoholics Anonymous. So let me speak a little bit about its structure. You have the group. Now, in my community, Felicity, where I live here, there's actually 5 AA groups. There's one that meets on a Sunday at the Mahasabha School, the Felicity Hindu School, and there's also one at that same venue on a Friday night. So you have 2 meetings there. The one on Friday night begins at 7. The one on Sunday evening begins at 6. Then right not far away from there at the Presbyterian School, there are also 2 groups that meet there, one on a Saturday night and one on a Monday night. These 2 groups start at 7 p.m. And then there's another group that started off during the COVID time in the farmlands. Because of the restrictions and all of that, this group decided they had to have a meeting, and they were having it in the gardens where the people make their agricultural gardens and so on. There's a shed there, and members still go and meet there on a Wednesday night at 7. So just in this community, you have 5 groups. There are groups in Endeavor, the Endeavor Hindu School, and I must give recognition to the Mahasabha board, you know, under Mr. Sat Maharaj and now under Mr. Vijay Maharaj. They have given free access to Alcoholics Anonymous groups wherever there are Mahasabha schools. They have allowed for many years. The group at the Mahasabha school in Felicity has been meeting there for over 50 years. And so too, there are groups in Endeavor, there's an Enterprise, there is in Penal, there is in Debe, and these are just a few that comes off the top of my head. There is in El Dorado. All these Hindu schools, the Harangwares, they all host and they give opportunity to Alcoholics Anonymous to host meetings there free of charge. As indeed, they also give this airtime as a community service free of charge as well. So that there are AA meetings, as I said, all over Trinidad. And these groups meet whether there's holiday or no holiday or whatever. Every AA group meet on that day that is designated. Unless very rare, they may have a problem if the school is being repaired or something and they can't host the meeting, or sometimes for elections, I know, where the school is prepared for the electoral process, the meeting has to be removed, but sometimes it is removed temporarily to some other address. But meetings happen on a weekly basis in Trinidad. So I have had the opportunity to study in Jamaica, and I've visited many other Caribbean islands. And I must say that we are very fortunate. Indeed, I've done the research that in Trinidad and Tobago, we have the highest proliferation of AA groups per capita than any other country in the world. A big place like Jamaica, when I studied there in the 1980s, they only had 5 groups. 3 groups in Kingston and 2 groups up in the North Coast. Grenada and Grenada had 2 groups. Barbados had, I think, had 3 groups in those days. And so that, in fact, Guyana, a big place like Guyana, had no groups in those days. There was a group that started and then did not continue to function. So that we are very fortunate, and it is not because we have a big drinking problem, different from anywhere else in the world, but it is because of the nature of the organizational structure in Trinidad and Tobago that has really initiated and continues to maintain the service that is provided by Alcoholics Anonymous. And let me just describe the structure. You have the groups that comprise the ordinary members. And like I say, at the schools, they meet every Sunday, Monday, whatever days. But each group sends a representative and someone called an alternate. They send these 2 representatives to the intergroups. There are several intergroups in Trinidad. There's the Northern Intergroup, there is the Central Intergroup, there's the Southern Intergroup, there's the Southwestern Intergroup, and there have been several other little intergroups that have started out to manage and to coordinate the affairs of the various groups that they service. So in the central area here, there's a central intergroup, as I mentioned before, that administers to about 24 AA groups. Each AA group will send a representative and an alternate to the intergroup, which meets once a month. In Central, the intergroup meets every first Sunday of the month, and the intergroup is staffed with officers. There's a chairperson, there's a vice chairperson, there's a secretary, assistant secretary, there's a treasurer, there are two trustees, and there's also a manager. And the office of the Central Intergroup is housed at Rivulet Road near the old Britain Castle factory. And I will give the number out at the end, but there's a manager there who is there between 8 to 4 every day to respond to calls. If anyone calls seeking help or information about Alcoholics Anonymous, the office manager is there to respond to those things. In the same office, as I'm speaking about that, there's also housed the General Service Board of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that the General Service Board also has an office manager who is responding to calls and making referrals and all of that. So that there's every day a person needing to speak to someone, to get some information, they can call these offices. I will furnish the number at the end of the program. So you have the various intergroups that is staffed by officers of the various intergroups. Each intergroup will have the same cadre of officers like chairperson, vice chairperson, secretary, assistant secretary, treasurer, and they will have their meetings once a month. The board also has meetings. Now, each group will also send what is called a delegate or alternate. A delegate and an alternate to the General Service Board. It comprises delegates, so that there are area committees. The General Service Board services the whole of the national community, Trinidad and Tobago. They also coordinates the work of the various intergroups as well. So what happens, the Trinidad and Tobago is divided up into areas for the purposes of administration and representation. And each area, the groups in that area meet and they elect a delegate and an alternate, 2 people. The alternates in both cases, at the intergroup level and at the board level, the alternates are really people who are on the studies of the representative, so that when the term of office of the representative, which is usually 2 years in some cases, when it expires, the alternate is right there, and it facilitates continuity so that the alternates can carry on the work of the area committee or the group. So it's a kind of sponsorship in service where the alternate gets a chance to see how the representative conducts themselves and carry the information from the group to the intergroup. The representative, if there's problems at the group level or there are activities that the group would like to initiate, like give an example, for instance, suppose the Felicity Serenity AA group decides they want to have a marathon meeting for the holidays, for the Christmas, as they do. The representative will inform the intergroup when he goes to that meeting, the first Sunday of the month, and the intergroup will take a note of it, and the intergroup produces correspondence, what is called panel sheets. They also produces letters, and they will circularize that information to the area, the area they service, but also to the national community. This allows for the enhancement of participation. And it also let the rest of the AA fraternity become aware of what is happening at Felicity Serenity Group and in Central. This, I must say, has been facilitated. So I think we have a call on the line. So let's take this call. Hello.
Hello, morning, Mr. Dwarka.
Good morning, sir.
I'm Rudolph calling from La Romaine.
Yes, Rudolph. You welcome.
Right. I've called the program on several occasions.
Okay.
Mr. Dwarka, I followed your advice of attending an AA meeting.
Right.
I observed 45 years of sobriety.
Oh, congratulations, man. Congratulations.
On the 28th of February this year. And regrettably, I never attended an AA meeting, but I took your advice, and I did that on the 29th.
Okay.
At the La Romaine meeting. And it was a very, rewarding experience for me, in that I was made aware that my father, Hans, and Fitzy were instrumental in forming that group in La Romaine.
Okay.
Yes, subsequent to that, Mr. Dwarka, I found myself in an online Zoom meeting held by the Circle of Reflection.
Beautiful.
The organizer of that lives not too far from me.
Okay.
And I've attended 3 online meetings so far. And my personal experience is that, and I made this point last night, I totally enjoyed my sobriety. I was able to do a lot of things for myself and my family. But after having attended the physical meeting and the online meeting, I am now experiencing the serenity attached to sobriety. And I promise to continue enjoying that serenity that comes with sobriety. And as the fellowship says, we have to give thanks and praise to the God of our understanding.
Correct.
So that we can stay sober one day at a time. I'm in the process of trying to get some literature relevant to the fellowship.
Right.
For example, the 12 steps, the 12 traditions, and the big book. Right. You can get them online, but I want to have these things in my hand. I want to have these things in my hand so that I can have that closer connection with this fellowship that has done so much for me. And as I said, I took your advice in attending a physical AA meeting, and it was rewarding. I would just like to thank you and the fellowship for the intervention that you have made in my life to enjoy the serenity of sobriety. Thank you. I'll continue listening. And incidentally, I've compiled some notes of your meetings. I have it in front of me right now.
Okay.
My sister asked me this morning when I'm going to publish it. I said I might be charged for plagiarism. So I keep these things dear to me. And as I said, thanks to the God of our understanding so that we can continue to stay sober one day at a time. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Rudolph, for calling. And you have my permission to repeat anything that I've said. Once it is going to help someone else, I have no problem with that at all. You know, I feel very humbled that you would call the program and you would really, you know, this is an encouragement to all those listeners who are listening. You know, what you have described there and the results that you have experienced is testimony to the fact that, you know, yes, a lot of us could make it on our own, but it won't hurt if we get a little help, you know. And I know that the online meetings are so convenient, the level of discussion, you know, I've paid attention to what's happening in the online meetings, and the level of program delivery in the online meetings is really, really amazing. It is not to say there's any less fellowship in the physical meetings. Actually, in the physical meetings, I know members describe the warmth, the handshake, you know, the little camaraderie and the fun and all of that. So there are advantages on both sides. But of course, for some people, it is much more convenient to go to the online meetings. And so now we have the good fortune in Trinidad to have access to both formats. You know, you can stay in Trinidad and you can attend to a meeting in New Zealand, in England, in various time zones as well. So if you're having difficulty to sleep in the night, you can jump into a meeting. But coming back to the structure of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was speaking about the General Service Board, which, you know, there's the General Service Board of Alcoholics Anonymous in New York, which is the world, they provide worldwide services, and that's the parent body. So that if any group, any member, any intergroup board has a question or a query or something that they do not understand, they can always write to the parent body, the General Service Board, and they have people there who are very experienced in the fellowship, in the interpretation of the fellowship. And they will send back, and I've always heard that they send back prompt replies, you know, giving guidance and so on. But most of the time, I realize, you know, from discussions with members that they really don't, most of the time they give suggestions. Their guidance is in the form of suggestions. They never said, you must do this or you have to do that. So again, let me remind our listeners, you know, this is an interactive program, and those of you listening, if you wish to call and comment or ask a question, you're quite welcome to do that. Yes, so that one of the reasons AA has flourished in Trinidad is because of the organization that AA created for itself. So you have the groups, you have the various intergroups, and these intergroups, what they do, they create what is called panel arrangements. And the panel arrangements has helped to create a sort of unity in the fellowship. Let me explain that. So for instance, you have 24 AA groups in Central, just using that for an example. You have the Felicity Serenity AA group, and the intergroup may make an arrangement where on a particular day of the week, for the whole month, they make arrangements for groups to intervisit with each other. So you may find Felicity Serenity scheduled to do a panel visit with the Caparo AA group on a Wednesday, or the Endeavor AA group is paneled to visit the Gratitude AA group in Felicity on a Monday. And so that what this does, it creates an opportunity for people to fellowship with each other, so that members get to know each other And in the mind of the new person, they realize, but wait, it's not only people in Felicity are saying this. Everywhere I go, alcoholics are saying the same thing, that if you drink and you drink excessively, these are the things that are going to happen to you. But more important, they are speaking about how they were able to stop and stay stopped, that this program really works. And that is what really convinces the new man that, wait, if they are all saying this thing is working, they have no interest in coming here to tell a lie every night. That soon enough the new person realizes, look, and the conviction with which they speak, because I've listened to people speak in AA meetings, they speak the truth. People in AA meetings don't go and tell a lie. Some people may exaggerate something sometimes, I suppose, human nature, but they don't tell generally. And then, especially if the alcoholic is attending his meetings in the same village, he or she would have realized, no, some of the people who are speaking there now and knew how they used to drink, and look, they are sober now, and they are aware of that, and that is really what conveys the message. And this is why there's a tradition in Alcoholics Anonymous that says our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. Attraction meaning people see for themselves that, look, John Brown was a drunk who used to be sleeping under the shop and on Campton and aggressive and violent and disrespectful and all of that. And all of a sudden, he's going to the meeting, he stopped drinking, and look at the transformation. And now he's clean, he's well groomed, he's properly dressed, and he's now taking care of his family. Next thing, he's driving a car and all of that. And people in the community can't fail to take note of these things. And that is the impact, that is the attraction that AA has. But as I say this, I want people in the community to also realize that when a person goes to AA, they are not changed overnight. They still sometimes still have other challenges that they're dealing with. They are not perfect human beings. I'm saying this because I know sometimes there's a lot of stigma still associated with people, even though they are in recovery. They're still not given a break in the community. Because of alcoholism and drug addiction, a lot of people get scapegoated in their community. And for people in the professional arena, they understand, people, psychotherapists will understand this more so, that when you get scapegoated in your group, you actually get boxed into a position that the other members of the group really don't want you to get out from. You become the joke, the butt of their abuses and so on. And they would seek to keep you in that position. So too in the community, a lot of time people become envious of AA members who have stopped drinking, and now look, they seem to be doing better than others. There's a little bit of envy. So members of AA has that responsibility. These organizations, like the intergroup and the board, one of their duties is public information, to give information to the public, so they clear up whatever misconceptions there are. That when you go to an AA meeting, you don't have to go there talk about your business. Going to an AA meeting, you don't have to pay any money. You don't have to join any religion. To clear up all of these misconceptions. And to that extent, the General Service Board, while they have two kinds of trustees. They have the alcoholic trustee, that is the one, alcoholics who have now stopped using alcohol, who are in recovery for a considerable amount of time. And then you have non-alcoholic trustees. And usually the chairperson of the General Service Board and one or two other trustees will be non-alcoholic trustees. And these non-alcoholic trustees are people who can go before the media and speak about Alcoholics Anonymous, the chairman of the board and the non-alcoholic trustees. Because other than these non-alcoholic trustees, all AA members are, because of a tradition, they are not allowed to go full face in the front of or give their full name at the level of radio or television. And there's a reason for that, because if those people speaking on behalf of AA should ever relapse, get drunk, they can bring the whole fellowship into disrepute, because the public is going to say, but wait, and he's a member of AA. He was talking on television and radio and proclaiming that AA is so good and so effective. And look, he's drunk. You understand? And now with social media, it will be a disaster because somebody is going to post him on social media as being drunk. And this is why people in recovery who are members of Alcoholics Anonymous are not allowed to go full face at the level of press, radio, and films. To the extent where if I was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, I will not be able to come full face and say, I am a member of AA on this program. Actually, I'm on this program, I'm here as a professional, as a psychiatric social worker, retired, and who has been director of family services, director of the Piparo Empowerment Center. I'm also into complementary medicine. I'm an acupuncturist. I do counsel people with alcoholism and drug addiction, and I have literally specialized in this field of counseling people who have become addicted to substances and become dependent on drugs. So I know this discussion in no way gives a full picture of the structure of Alcoholics Anonymous. Suffice it to say, though, that if a person has any questions, let me see if I can get the office number for the General Service Board. I don't remember it off the top of my head. Yes, it is 229-2288. The General Service Board is 229-2288. And the intergroup office, let me see if I can get that one. Right, the Central Intergroup, this is their new number, I understand. It is 495-8403. That is 495-8403. And if you call these numbers between the hours of 8 to 4, you should have someone respond to you, giving you information if you have a person who has a problem with alcohol, or you have a problem with alcohol. You can call. At this office, there's also literature that is available that can help a person to decide whether they're an alcoholic or not. They can also provide very useful information in terms of referring you to where the groups are, what time they meet, and so on. So, and even if you want to speak to someone, you have a problem and you'd like to get clarification about, the resources that are available. Of course, you can call me at 671-3040, 671-3040, and I would be only too happy to give you that information. And there are offices located in Port of Spain and in South as well. There are meeting places all over Trinidad, as I mentioned earlier on. And once you call the General Service Board, they will be able to give you the name and addresses of these various venues and their meeting times. I want to reassure our listening public that it is not a shame for a person to accept that they have a problem with alcohol, because alcoholism has been accepted as a disease by the World Health Organization, by our government here as well, and there's no shame in being sick. If you're diabetic, or you're hypertensive, or you're alcoholic, the correct thing to do is to seek help for it. And help is available. It's just a phone call away. All you have to do is call, and the people at the offices, you call me, I would be only too happy to give you the information as regards where you can get help. I know there's a lot of other private organizations as well, as I mentioned this, and I'm hoping in the future to get some of these people, like from the Heal House, there's the Rebirth House, there's the New Life Ministries, there's a substance abuse prevention and treatment facility at Cora Hospital. There is a home in South Trinidad for women at Cochran Village, the Serenity Place, at Serenity Place, that is. There is also another all-female treatment facility that is hosted by the New Life Ministries at Santa Flora. So in the future, hopefully we can get representatives from these various places to come on the program and tell you what they have, what they offer, how to access their treatment. And I'm also hoping that we could get someone from other fellowships. You have Narcotics Anonymous, you have Al-Anon family groups. So you all can look forward to people from all these various entities coming on the program in the future and speaking about their facilities, their services that they provide, and how to access these services. We also have the option of getting people, again, who are in recovery to come on the program and speak about their personal experience. So you can hear it, as we say, from the horse's mouth, what has been their experience with drug use and the problems associated with it, and how they were able to get help and to deal with their problem. Again, I want to thank Francis and the crew at Radio and TV Jagriti for the various video clips and for facilitating this program week after week, and to remind all our listeners that the program will be aired again at 10 p.m. tonight. You can tune in, and that it will be posted on YouTube and Facebook at the end. So I want to thank you all those who have been listening, and especially Rudolph for calling and sharing his experience and his gratitude for the referrals and so on, and what is happening with him today. So I want to encourage him to continue with his meetings, and all those other people out there. Easter is coming up soon, and we always in Trinidad has no shortage of reasons to go and drink. These days the sun very hot, and in my drinking days I would say, boy, we have to go and take a drink for that. So you always have to be on your guard. Remember, it's a one day at a time program. The formula is you avoid that first drink, one day at a time, pray to the God of your understanding, and go to your meetings. So I want to thank you all for listening, and thank the people at the radio and television station for hosting us again. Thank you all. Until next week, Thursday, we meet again, 9 a.m. Sitaram, and goodbye.